The second a Jewish person dies, the clock is ticking. Unlike a lot of cultures where funerals may take days or even weeks to prepare, Judaism insists that burial happen as quickly as possible, ideally within 24 hours. Almost immediately, volunteers step in to take care of the body. It's washed, wrapped in simple white shrouds, and placed in a plain wooden coffin. No makeup, no display, no elaborate ceremony. And from the moment of death until burial, the body is never left alone. For thousands of years, Jews have followed this same precise process. So, what's really behind Judaism's strange death customs? In Judaism, when someone dies, the first call isn't to friends or family, it's to Judaism's all-volunteer burial society, the Chevra Kadisha. The Chevra Kadisha, which literally means the sacred society, has been a central part of Jewish life for thousands of years. Membership in the society is considered a huge honor, and historically, forming a Chevra Kadisha was often one of the very first acts of organization in a newly established Jewish community. But why? Well, this is the final act of kindness that can never be repaid. And just as Judaism places profound importance on institutions that sustain Jewish life, synagogues, schools, kosher butchers, it places equal, if not greater importance on how Jews care for the dead. And that responsibility falls to the Chevra Kadisha. Their central task is preparing the body for burial with dignity and care in a process called Tahara, which means purification. During Tahara, members of the Chevra Kadisha gently wash the body as a final act of honor. Often, this is done in a Jewish ritual bath called a mikveh. And yes, there are even male and female teams within a Chevra Kadisha that ensure all Tahara is performed by members of the same gender. But what's most striking is the extreme level of care with which the body is treated. Every movement is slow and deliberate. The body is never handled roughly or exposed unnecessarily. The Chevra Kadisha will even speak to the deceased with quiet respect, sometimes asking forgiveness for any inadvertent lack of honor. And while the Chevra Kadisha takes great care during the process, they also have to get a move on because the clock is ticking. While many cultures wait days, even weeks before burying their dead, Judaism insists that burial happen as soon as humanly possible, often within 24 hours. This is partly to honor the dignity of the body and partly because Jewish tradition teaches that the soul can't fully find rest until burial takes place. After the body is cleaned, it's dressed in simple white shrouds, the same for everyone, rich or poor, famous or unknown, because in death, Judaism strips away the markers of status and wealth, insisting that every person be buried the same way, in the same clothes, with the same quiet dignity. The shrouds are fastened with simple ties, never knots, symbolizing that now nothing can tie the soul down to earth. In some diaspora communities, a small amount of dirt from the land of Israel is placed in the coffin or among the burial shrouds, a way of saying that even in death, the bond between a Jew and the Jewish homeland endures. Now, traditionally, and in places like Israel, Jews are often buried directly in the ground, without a casket. Only the white burial shrouds separate the body from the soil. In places like the US, where casket burial is legally required, a simple wooden casket is used, but with no paint, no flash, and no adornment. Once the body is washed and dressed, that's it. The Chevra Kadisha goes home, right? Well, what if I told you even after Tahara is complete, Jewish tradition insists that someone needs to be with the body at every waking moment? This is called Shmira, which means the watch. In Judaism, it's forbidden to abandon a body after death. But why the need to keep a body company around the clock even after a person's died? According to Jewish tradition, death isn't a hard off switch. It's actually more like a slow fade out. The person is gone from their body, sure, but some kind of awareness still lingers. In those first hours after death, Jewish tradition teaches that the soul leaves the body and enters a strange new liminal state, suspended between worlds, yet still lingering among the living. This is likely very disorienting, to say the least. Judaism's response is simple. Even in death, you're never alone. Someone stays with the body, quietly keeping watch until it's returned to the earth. And now is probably a good time to mention something else important. In Judaism, the body must be returned to the earth. Practices like cremation, for example, are expressly forbidden. The body must return to the same dust that, according to the Torah, God used to form Adam, the first human. The body should also be buried intact, which is why Jewish law prohibits anything that could damage or fragment the body. In the aftermath of October 7th, we saw a painful example of this. Volunteers from Zaka, an Israeli organization that recovers human remains after disasters and terrorist attacks, worked tirelessly to collect even the smallest fragment from attack sites so that every part of a person could be given a proper Jewish burial. The work of organizations like Zaka is done to preserve dignity, but it also connects to a deeper hope that one day, in the Messianic age, God will bring the dead back to life in what's known as Techiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead. A video for another time. And oh yeah, absolutely no open caskets. While some cultures place the body on display for mourners to view, Judaism does the complete opposite. The body is never displayed because even in death, a person's privacy is always protected. But while there's no public viewing, the public still plays a major role in the burial. In Hebrew, the funeral is called the levaya, or the accompaniment. That's because the public comes together to accompany the deceased to their final resting place. Which brings us to the big moment, the burial itself. Now, before the funeral begins, close family members perform a ritual called kriya, the tearing of a piece of clothing. In the ancient Near East, where Judaism first emerged, some mourners showed their grief by cutting their own bodies. But the Torah explicitly forbids self-harm. Instead, Judaism channels that same impulse into a symbolic act, tearing a garment. And we see this in the Torah, where figures like the patriarch Jacob or King David tear their own clothing in times of mourning. Now, the torn garment is often worn at the funeral and throughout the mourning period as a form of catharsis and a visible sign of grief. At the funeral, there are eulogies and there are prayers, but the most striking moment comes at the very end. A line is formed, and each person at the levaya places dirt onto the coffin. In Judaism, you're buried by your community. But the story doesn't end when the body is in the ground. In fact, this is only the beginning. Until this point, the focus has been on honoring the dead, but now the focus shifts to caring for the living, the mourners. Before leaving the cemetery, attendees form two lines so the mourners can walk between them and receive words of comfort. The traditional words are, like everything else in the death process, strikingly simple. Hamakom yenachem etchem. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. But how exactly is this repeated line supposed to make someone feel better? The truth is, it's not. Judaism doesn't try to explain the loss or take the pain away. It simply says, you're not alone in this grief. You're comforted by the community, and you're comforted by God. For 7 days after the burial, the mourners stay home while friends, family, and members of the community come to visit. This is called Shiva. Just as the body wasn't left alone before burial, the mourner is never left alone during the 7 days of Shiva. As a result, Shiva houses are often loud, crowded affairs with a constant stream of people coming and going. And while traditionally Jews don't give flowers to the mourners, they do bring other things. Food, and yes, more food. Meals arrive from friends and neighbors, ensuring that mourners don't have to worry about the ordinary tasks of daily life. And that's important, because during Shiva, daily life is on pause. There's no work, no day-to-day tasks, no shaving, no showering. Mourners sit on low chairs. Mourners aren't even supposed to greet people with a casual hello. Some families even cover the mirrors in their house, signaling again that things aren't normal here. And all of this has the effect of flattening time. The hours blur as guests cycle in and out of the Shiva house. When visitors sit with the mourners, the conversation should be about the person who's died. Stories about their life, their character, the moments they shared. Those stories may be told again and again as new visitors arrive, and that repetition has a purpose. It allows the mourners to slowly begin processing the loss. When people leave the Shiva house, they stand up, face the mourner, and repeat the same words spoken at the cemetery. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. The phrase alludes to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, collapsing time itself and weaving a moment of personal grief into the much longer story of Jewish collective loss. Just as God comforts those who mourn the destruction of Jerusalem, we pray that the mourner too will be comforted. But even after the conclusion of Shiva, Judaism's mourning cycle continues, in this case, into something called Shloshim, which means 30. For the 30 days after the burial, life slowly begins to resume. Mirrors are uncovered, the torn clothing is removed, mourners can return to work and daily responsibilities, but certain signs of ritual mourning remain. No live music, no parties, no shaving. For those mourning a parent, the process continues even longer. For 11 months, these mourners go to synagogue sometimes up to 3 times a day to recite the Kaddish prayer. Now, if you've ever been to a Jewish service, you may have heard Kaddish before. It's often associated with mourning, but it's actually recited at several points in the daily prayer service. And here's the surprising part. The Kaddish prayer never mentions death, not even once. Instead, it speaks about something else entirely, the greatness of God and the hope that peace will one day fill the world, which reveals something profound about the Jewish approach to grief. Even in the face of death, the words Jews return to are words about life and the possibility of a brighter future. But Judaism recognizes that grief doesn't ever really disappear, which is why Jews observe what's called a Yahrzeit, the anniversary of a person's death. Each year on that date, loved ones light a candle, recite Kaddish, and remember the life that was lost. In some communities, this practice continues far beyond a single generation. In Bukharian Jewish communities, for example, families sometimes mark a Yahrzeit long after anyone who knew the deceased personally is gone. Even centuries after a person's died, Judaism still finds ways to remember them, which is why visitors to a Jewish cemetery often place a small stone on top of the grave. At first, it was practical. Stones marked graves so they wouldn't be forgotten or disturbed. Over time, the stone became something more, a quiet message. Someone was here. This person is remembered. But stones aren't the only way Jews preserve memory. Acts like giving charity, studying Torah, or performing good deeds in someone's name are believed to add merit to their soul. Because in Judaism, memory isn't passive, it's something you do. From the moment a person dies, Jewish tradition sets that process in motion. The body returns to the earth, the mourners slowly return to life, and the memory of the person who died continues, carried forward in the actions of the living.